Hey kids, it's Jurassic James, and on this Jurassic James Explains, we're looking at Spinosaurus. Same rules as before, older models here, younger here. We're going to see all of them, the whole history. So the first point I want to make is the first time children see Spinosaurus, it's usually in the form of this guy here. You get your pack of 10 dinosaur toys, he's in there, you say, why is he in there? Basically, he has like the generic theropod look with a tail. And that's kind of rooted into his history. The idea with Spinosaurus was it was first discovered, or at least written about, in 1912 by a German scientist named Ernst Stromer. He went to Egypt. He found neural spines, which I've told you before, the little bumps in your back, and your back vertebra. Imagine those being 6 feet tall. That's the Spinosaurus neural spine. He found other fragmented bones of the jaw, teeth, and so on. And being a good scientist, he did a lot of write-up papers. He drew diagrams, took pictures. He was really great in recording this. Unfortunately, when the Allies bombed Berlin Museum in Germany, Spinosaurus was lost. And in science, if there's no skeleton to actually touch, it's not, you can't keep researching it. For example, you write the paper on the skeleton, and then 20 years later, someone looks at the skeleton and gets more information. Well, if it's destroyed in the bombing, well, we don't have any information. So Spinosaurus kind of sat on the side of this kind of like this weird thing from Africa that no one really knew about or studied. And generally speaking, it was always depicted as having like an Allosaurus form or T-Rex form with a tail on its back. So this toy design has, kind of went throughout history. The first larger or more serious model I can find are the Carnegie, or Safari now, but Carnegie models, these guys here. And again, it's just the same idea, but it's kind of scaled up. The big Dimetrodon-like tail, this generic reptile head. Now, one thing to point out too is that these guys have 3-fingered hands and with claws, and predatory dinosaurs usually have 3-fingered hands with claws. If they have 2 fingers, they're more derived, they're more evolved from the, like T-Rex are further down the line. If they have a 4th finger, it doesn't have a claw on it usually. Think of Dilophosaurus or Coelophysis, so they'll have a little nub there, but having 3 would make sense. Where Spinosaurus sits on the family tree of dinosaurs, it makes sense to have 3 fingers on the forelimbs. As far as the toes go, we have 1, 2, 3 toes facing forward, a dew claw facing back. Makes sense. It's very standard issue for theropods. One thing to point out too is that there's a repaint, and as a kid, I'm a sucker for repaints because I would watch back in my day. We had Discovery Channel, and we watch like dinosaur documentaries and animal shows, and they would show dinosaur stuff, and whatever they didn't explain in dinosaurs, I would watch like modern animal documentaries, and I'd fill in the gaps. So in general, I would make the males like brighter and the females be more dull colors because we see that in like many bird species. So again, it's all made up. But I would look at that, and this is what I would do here. The next step was Jurassic Park 1, 1993. I remember, like kind of like Star Wars, it came out with this huge amount of toys and everything. Well, with Jurassic Park, it came out with a lot of toys, some in the movie, some not in the movie. And of course, they made their own Spinosaurus. One thing to point out with these guys, again, repaint, is that the Jurassic Park logo, I always like the idea of the JP symbol, and the marketing campaign was like, if it's not JP, it's extinct, because any other dinosaur toy is just a recreation of an actual dinosaur. Jurassic Park's like, we manufactured them, they are modern, Anyway, again, this Dimetrodon-like tail, the skull is different, which is really neat. I like that a lot because it's not accurate by any means, but it's at least different from Allosaurus and T-Rex and the other, so showing that they're realizing this must be a different animal, different environment, different conditions. The hands, unfortunately, the forelimbs have 4 clawed fingers, which is something that's like not a thing in predatory dinosaurs. So, but I can't fault them because, one, we didn't know for sure, and we still to this day don't have a Spinosaurus hand. So that for sure, but again, one thing we can point out though, if the wrist again should be palm to palm, like for the hands like this, not like that. The standard Jurassic Park broken wrist. There are 3 toes facing forward. There's a dew claw on the side. I will say one thing that I do like, that the tails got better because, I understand the tails are smaller because of packaging and shipping and all that. Here we have like a kangaroo stance, the tripod. But in general, theropod dinosaurs have big tails. And this guy, it's not big enough, but it's getting better. So I can actually appreciate that. Next we have, so those are hiatus. And Jurassic Park 3 came out, and Jack Horner said it on camera. You can see it on YouTube. And he was pointing out how, T-Rex need to be dethroned. They found a bigger dinosaur. And the example of this is Hollywood. Like T-Rex in Part 1, Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World, we have 2 T-Rexes, a pair of bonds, which is awesome. Part 3, Spinosaurus is bigger. and part 4 / Jurassic World we have Indominus, because there's no bigger dinosaur, predator dinosaur than Spinosaurus, so make up one. That's the get bigger and better, more teeth. So Jurassic Park 3 comes out with the Spinosaurus, and I'll point out these two guys here. Now, one thing to inform you of is that there is a large Spinosaurus model from Jurassic Park 3. That is my white whale. I have not found that at a decent price online, even to this day, or in good condition. I'm still looking for one. If you have one and don't want it, the comments below, please. So these Spinosaurus, again, the first thing I want to point out from head to toe, the skull. I like the skull more because it has a more Spinosaurus. They have very long snouts like crocodiles. We now know they have actually a crest between the eyes, not these two horns here. I'm not sure what they knew in 2001, but the idea is that the nostrils are further back, so it's showing that like they had that feature in this family where they're rooting around in the water for fish and stuff. But overall, the more crocodilian design is better compared to what the generic reptile look. The tails are atrocious. I I get it. It's a packaging thing, but it's like, it makes you sick almost. The point is, so the forelimbs, again, other than the wrist being incorrect, I call it the JP wrist, because Jurassic Park they all have that like this. Most toys realize like, oh, do it this way. But again, 3 large clawed fingers. As far as the design and skin texture, we see feathered dinosaurs. This group, the Spinosaurus and their cousins, the Megalosaurus, they don't seem to may have had feathers possibly. So, and also with Spinosaurus being mainly aquatic, that's a good thing. And in the movie it showed that actually it was in the water a lot. The final scene was that. So that's really actually pretty good. I like that a lot. The toes, of course, we have your 3 toes facing forward and 1 facing back. Just in general, theropod, the middle toe is usually longer. We see that in footprints. Although there's no Spinosaurus footprints known, that's one thing we do see in many predatory dinosaurs. So the toes aren't all equally the same size. But, anyway, I digress. Now, as with anything, a big movie comes out, people want to copy it. And Jurassic Park came out, and this company called Dinosaur Valley made this guy. And for me, it was a big deal because it was my first big Spinosaurus. But also, it's essentially a copy and paste of the same Jurassic Park design, only with more, a more gnarly cell. But overall, the skull has that very like crocodile form. The 2 crests here from the eyes. The arms actually are slightly better. They're twisting in. They're not quite palm to palm, but they're getting there. Toes, you have 3 in the front. The dewclaw on the back is a little bit bigger, and of course the tail is absolutely the worst. It should be bigger. It should be longer. It should be like that, not like this little thing here. The next one I have, I actually bought it for this video because I saw it had the 4 fingers, and I just didn't want to buy it. And eventually I was like, I'm going to do a video pretty soon, so I might as well get it. What I do like about the hand, though, is that it has that really big claw there. So Spinosaurus has many cousins around the world, and Baryonyx, whose name means heavy claw, we'll see him later in the video. He has a large first toe. Oh, right. So we count the toes going out. So it's first, second, third, fourth, like that. So dinosaurs lose their fingers going in like this, which is why if you have a T-Rex, it's like these 2 fingers. For Allosaurus is these 3 fingers like that. So for Spinosaurus, we think it'll be these 3 fingers. And the first toe might have had a bigger hook on it like this, which is what we see in the family. I will say that the horizontal walking before its time is really a big deal, that they had to put it like this. I mean, it can still rear up, but it's on all 4. And I like that a lot because it's more's coming in the future. The crest is finally correct in the eyes. Cell's all right. It's not, the cell really comes up and go like that, but given the time it was made, we didn't really know that. And the tail's better. So despite my belly aching, it's pretty good. I like that also the Safari tube. This is from Safari. Had these tubes of like sailors and Native Americans and knights and animals from South America and lizards. So the dinosaur baby tube. And historically, as a kid, dinosaur babies were just like the smaller models like this, but this one actually has the big eyes, tiny nose, and weird features of a baby. I mean, think of human babies; they have really big heads, and as time progressed, their bodies catch up, basically. Except for me, my head's pretty huge. But the idea is that that's an actual baby dinosaur. Are there any baby Spinosauruses found? No. But again, if you're gonna hypothesize, this isn't too bad. The cell might being smaller, the eyes being large, tiny little limbs, pretty cool. The next one was a high point in my collection because I remember I was in the museum gift shop and I bought this, and at the time it was like $30. It was the most like accurate, it's the most accurate Spinosaurus at the time. It had a nice sail that's kind of well developed. It's not just a little thing on its back right there. The tail was pretty big. The hand was palm to palm, barrel claw, very narrow. This is the main thing that none of these guys did before. A very narrow snout. Also, the crest is right between its eyes. That little notch is there, which is we see it in Spinosaurus jaws, and no one noticed it before apparently. And again, it's the pattern of scales. We don't know the skin color, texture, or color, but we do believe it would have probably been more scaly because it's in the water. I know there's birds with feathers in the water, penguins, but this is, it would have made more sense to be more like this. And I remember when I got I was so happy, and then like a week later, a paper came out, and they're like, actually. So on that note, I will continue. But the next guy, of course, is a company called Papo, because this was Safari, and Papo has like these really big models that are relatively expensive compared to like Safari. And I remember that they have the Triceratops, the Stegosaurus, the T-Rex, the Raptor. They all have a Jurassic Park aesthetic. So obviously at this point, we're noticing that this design may be in question, but it looks like the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus. So it articulates here. It retains the Jurassic Park crest. And at some point in my mind, I have taken on Dr. Grant's view in Jurassic Park 3, where there are dinosaurs and there's the monsters of Isla Sorna, of the Jurassic Park series, that the creatures you see in the movie, of course, are not real dinosaurs. They all died out, but they're just genetic recreations of dinosaurs, what we think they would look like. And for whatever reason of mental gymnastics, it's like, yes, that makes sense. That's cool. So for me, like, yeah, even though it's not correct scientifically, that those crests, like, it looks like the Jurassic Park Spinosaurus, so cool. I don't want this channel to be a sense of this toy is wrong, throw it out. I mean, it makes you happy if you're happy, right? The next guy is kind of a slight remold over. This is a gift from a friend named Ricky, and a friend of mine named Ricky. I was in Paleo Prep Lab, and I was sitting there, and I said, I had never seen this before in my life. This is a new model. And she's like, you can have it. And like, here it is. So, and apparently it's really rare. So thank you, Ricky. So basically it's the same body plan as the one I just mentioned. It's a Jurassic Park style. So there it is. So again, we have another hiatus in Spinosaurus history as far as toy making. And because every year we need a new Triceratops, Stegosaurus, and T-Rex, not very many other dinosaurs are being made. And then Jurassic World comes out. Now, when I was a kid, I remember in the 90s going into like a store and seeing the Jurassic Park toy aisle. And it was like a whole section of dinosaur toys. And it was like, that euphoric music playing, So when Jurassic World came out, I'm like, I'm an adult with money. I can get all the toys. I was frankly kind of disappointed. I think it was Hasbro had the contract, and it was a small aisle in Toys R Us, and out of all the toys they had, I only bought like 3, like the Spinosaurus and Allosaurus and one more, and I was still disappointed. I thought they would have the same kind of all the characters and figures and vehicles, but they just didn't. My number one complaint with this figure is the Dino Damage, and it's something that in the original Jurassic Park toys, they would have like a wound, and there was like skin to go over it, and then you got bitten and they removed the skin, right? So in part 1, they had like the rubbery skin, which was really cool. And part 2, they had like it was more hard plastic. I get that they're, part 3, like this with this guy here too, they had like this open wounds, and I remember like as a kid, I just didn't like that. The idea of there just being an open wound and showing ribs and everything. I mean, I know there's dinosaurs we found that have had open wounds and died, like Leonardo dinosaur mummy, Brachiosaurus, but it's just, I just didn't like that, for a healthy, fit animal walking around with a giant, Anyway, the dino action is like you move the tail, it does that. But overall, the very thin, crocodile snout, I like that a lot. The sail was very, the generic hump. Tail, atrocious. Feet going forward, pretty good 3 claws, and it's a dew claw, so that's good. Hands, Jurassic Park style. It's the figure is horrible, but it's okay because it's what it is. It's a Jurassic Park. It's So a few years ago, the museum went to Germany. They took a trip to Germany. I could not go, and friends of mine, Bill and Cindy Geyser, were on this trip, and they saw they bought this Bullyland Spinosaurus, and I love like foreign dinosaur toys, and they gave it to me, and I was like, oh my goodness, like first of all, you went to Germany, and you brought me a dinosaur toy back. You were thinking of me. I'm so honored. And second, they gave me a dinosaur toy, which is like easy access to me. Like, oh my god, you're in now. So articulated jaw. What I do like is that they're realizing that Spinosaurus's fish dietary lifestyle, it's starting to kind of drift into the toy makers' minds. So you're starting to see them kind of like hunched over where they're like fishing and stuff and near water. That's kind of like the design we're seeing. The tail is not great, but it's getting better. It's at least it's not a rat tail like in the Jurassic Park ones. The tail is more, it's not the same right shape, but it's overall the same good, design. Hands, 3 fingers, and the palm turning in. So we're seeing that being more of a stable as we drift from the Jurassic Park influence. 3 toes in the front, claw on the side. So I mean, it's a great figure. It's not a bad figure. I was in, I believe, Toys R Us before it closed, and there was this Schlee. Wait, make sure I'm saying that correctly. Yes, Schlee, German company, I believe, Spinosaurus. And again, you're seeing this like the next step where it's not, the legs are longer, but it's committing more to the being on the ground lower. And of course, the toy's in a very, like an action pose. It doesn't have the notch in the jaw, but the teeth got to go in, so it's kind of a different thing. There's an idea that it's not eating fish at this point, right? I'm gonna go over that more in the other part of this video. But again, 3 toes in the front. The claws seem really high. So basically, on the like this part is the metatarsal, which is the arch of your foot. These are the flanges of the toes, and it's like a huge foot. But the claws are kind of up here. It's not terribly wrong. The sail's big, Sail's pretty good. Tail's pretty good. Not as where I wanted to be, but we're getting there. So then, research by Minnie and Dr. Ibram came along. Ibram, and I remember seeing the first like Nat Geo, and this is the example I give to my students about how hard it is to think like a scientist. And what I mean is that a scientist, we're humans who want to believe and trust in old ideas and what we already have. And with science, what you have to do is when there's new evidence and it contradicts your former ideas, you have to abandon your long-held beliefs to accept the new ideas. And that's not easy or like natural for people. It's not easy to tell someone that, oh, everything you believe in this one idea is now wrong or off. Believe this now. When I first saw the picture of the Spinosaurus with the shorter legs, I mean, as a human, I was like, that's wrong. Because I had invested in all these toys. No, because it's just something that was different. And I was like, oh, what is this? And of course, you read into more and read more, and you see that, okay, they're finding leg bones, and their ratios are seeming to be shorter than the standard issue long Spinosaurus. So I was in one of my favorite places, Dinosaur Park in Bastrop, and I was, I always see the field trips there, and take friends there. Dinosaur Park in Bastrop, near Bastrop, Texas. And I remember being in the gift shop, because I always like do a trip, and then I go to the gift shop, and my wife's always like, honey, you do this trip and you make money, but then you spend part of it in the gift shop. And I remember seeing this guy, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna commit. So I bought my first quadrupedal horizontal Spinosaurus, and I remember looking at it, and it's just looking at it overall. And again, when that discovery was made, there wasn't a lot of the animal found, but enough to see the legs were shorter. So the tail here, it's just a crocodile's tail. They did, the toy makers is like crocodile tail. And this is from Collect A, which I like Collect A, the company, because they do the standard issue T-Rex, Triceratops, Stegosaurus, but they also make other like rare species. My only concern, they make smaller models usually, which is good for, but the fact that you can find a rare species is something that's really kind of cool. So I like them a lot. But anyway, the idea is that it has the 3-fingered hands, the claw, I like the fact that the big claw, the first toe, kind of opposed. It's not a thumb by any means, but dinosaurs have that first toe kind of sitting on the side there. Kind of posed, but it's still a little different. And again, the sail is actually the most accurate, basically. Skull, very crocodilian-like. You have a little notch right there. So, I mean, from above the tail, it's like hitting the marks. Of course, the paper comes out, showing shorter legs. Then the argument goes against that. So we start seeing changes. So I believe it was Bullyland who made my next one I bought. Let's make sure before I say. Oh, no, Schlee. So Schlee makes this next one. So it's a bit, it's just a little bit bigger. But they take this design to go further. They abandon the crocodile tail, at least here. It's not the flat plated tail. It's more like a dinosaur here. The tip of it has a crocodilian, the scales there, but again, we don't have that part, so can't fault them. The legs are shorter, which is, 3 toes, dew claw, hand, palm to palm. Beautiful design. I love this guy. He's really good. Hands, a big claw there. And then, of course, the jaw articulates, I think. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. The cell has like that, like the McDonald's M almost. The crest between the eyes. So this is a really good guy. This is really good. Based on the evidence at that time, especially, it's really, really great. So I'm like, this is great. I'm very happy with this animal, even though I'm accepting and understanding this. And again, I'm not telling you to throw away all of these guys. It shows your progression over time of our understanding. But it was just like, wow, this is a new animal look. So I had a friend named Francisco in a museum gift shop, and he's like, we have a new Spinosaurus coming in. And I'm like, when is it? So I found it, and I bought the first one on display here. And basically, it's, not only this, but we're looking at the Spinosaurus, and we're seeing that the animal is living in the water a lot. So these are often how we depict it on the beach or the coastline, because North Africa was like Florida back then in some ways, and southern Florida, not the whole state, but the idea is that the C1 with the claws pointing in for swimming, the legs like that, the sail set that kind of that shape here, the rectangular shape, the crest, the notch, all the parts are here. So it's really good. It's given make it a crocodile. It's a very crocodilian scale form. And again, even a dew claw there. So it's swimming. And there's suggestion of web toes you can see here, which is something that we're seeing in more of the papers and information theorized. So again, really great guy. So fast forward is January 2020. And I remember I hear about a talk at Jones Hall, downtown Houston, from Nat Geo about Spinosaurus. By the time I find out about it, it's already sold out. So like, But I have friends and cool friends, Michelle and Jim Connor, say, hey, we have tickets for this talk. We can't go. Who do we know who would really appreciate a talk on Spinosaurus with Dr. Ibrahim? And I was like, me. So they gave my wife and I the tickets and went to the show. And I remember while we were outside, some of my museum friends were there. And I remember I was outside and after the show, and my coworkers, Daniel and George, had bought this Spinosaurus, this brand new Papo Spinosaurus. I had no idea it was out, and they bought it, and they were super excited about it. And I was like, wow, it was the most accurate Spinosaurus at the time. And I remember that my wife was like, wait, you don't have that one? And I'm like, no, I didn't know it existed. And she looked it up online and found it and ordered from it that night. Very supportive or enabling either way. And luckily for me, my friend Linda Murray let me meet the guy. I talked to him, and my employees, when we were doing the Q&A portion of the talk, George asked him, like, are you going to the museum in Houston? And he was like, sure, I'll check it out while I'm here. So I got to meet the guy. George had him sign this Spinosaurus model, which was pretty cool. And I remember the next day I had to teach a class. So I told my staff, I had a picture on my phone, if you see this man walk in the museum, you get him all access passes. He's a very important paleontologist, and you inform me immediately. And they were like, what if you're in class? I just peep in the door and be like, So I got to meet him, talk to him, and he said there was new information. So I encourage you first, as a supplement to this, to find the Nat Geo special, Bigger Than T-Rex. It's about Spinosaurus discovery and Dr. Ibram, and how we know Spinosaurus from Egypt, and their teeth scattered throughout North Africa, but how he found the skeleton in Morocco. It's a really great story. I'm not going to tell you it here. It's a really great story. Look it up, please. But I remember he was telling me that there's things that they are discovering and working on that's going to come out pretty soon, like a teasing. And I'm like, well, like what? And he clues. He's like, oh no, I can't tell you. It's, so it's going to be a big thing. And I remember just thinking, like, what could it be? What kind of new information? So basically, they went back to the same site they found through miraculously, and they found more of the same animal. And that's what we're seeing in this video. Actually, it's like my third attempt, because while shooting this video, they kept finding more stuff and putting out more paper. So like, I keep changing. And I think, at some point, that's why it's labeled Spinosaurus 1, because I'm going to do a part 2 at some point. But anyway, the idea is that they found that the neural spines on Spinosaurus, the parts that go up on its tail, are higher. And on the downstream tail, the parts going down are called chevrons. And they're really long too. So there's this image of a Spinosaurus tail where it's like coming out like this, and like that. And that was one of the new things he was talking about. So this guy, first of all, beautiful animal, The notch is there, the crest is there, the teeth are beautiful. The crest, I mean, the cell, perfect. The hands are kind of webbed, big, huge hands, tiny little legs. It's perfect, you know. And then that one paper said, no, a little bit like this. But again, it's new information. And I never fault the toy curators for not doing what they didn't know at the time. Meaning that if they knew the Spinosaurus look was what it was and made a toy like this, I'd be more upset. But again, they made this toy with that newest information before he even said it. And, you know, so I don't blame them for that, right? But this is, in my opinion, the most like accurate, perfect Spinosaurus on the market. I will end this portion of the talk with, of course, this guy here. Like I said, I never got the Jurassic Park 3 one with rubber skin. So, and I heard Mattel was doing the Target, what do you call it, Jurassic Park Legacy, and they had a Spinosaurus. I was super excited. And my wife is like big on online. She buys things online all the time. I like to go to the store and find a thing. I guess that paleontologist in me, like, go find it, look, and, you know, check every Target in town. And I remember Spinosaurus, whatever, something happened in the shipping and mailing part, whatever, to, you know, and they didn't have them in stores. They just didn't have the Spinosaurus. So she, of course, after I searched every store I could in my region, she went online and found it for me for one of my holiday, birthday, one of the things. So this Spinosaurus, again, totally inaccurate, but that thing called nostalgia in my brain is like childhood memories. I mean, the way the Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus looked, I will give them credit. The risks are finally correct after many, many, many years. It has like this cool gimmick where the mouth opens. So very narrow jaw, retaining 2 Jurassic Park crests. The sail, again, they're making the Spinosaurus from the original movie, so that's why it looks the same way. Tail is still too small, but they're better. It's not a rat tail, but it should be. Only first of all, a tail in general should have been like this, but now we know it should have been really, you know. But I don't fault them for that. 3 tails in the front, 2 claw on the side. So again, most accurate Spinosaurus of Jurassic Park's bigger one, you know. And I did hear or see online they're doing another, like a repaint, like a tan repaint of it. So it should be more on the market pretty soon. But anyway, so that's Spinosaurus toys through time. And I want to point out now several things such as their environmental contemporaries, because dinosaurs do not live in vacuums. What I'm saying is that when you see a dinosaur or a fossil, we in museums will see like, oh, it's just one skeleton sitting here, but remember that that is a representative of an individual, but of a species and of an environment. So, for example, I mentioned that North Africa in the Cretaceous period looked like Florida because there's a lot of, you know, it's like a mangrove swamp, basically. So what's the big deal? Well, North Africa doesn't follow the rules very well. What I'm saying is, when you think of an ecology, people think of like modern Africa. You have lions and leopards and cheetahs and wildebeest, you know, a number of carnivores and way more herbivores, not only in species type, but individuals, huge herds, right? Well, North Africa is kind of different. So the first thing I'm going to point out with North Africa is one of Spinosaurus's contemporaries, a titanosaur, a large sauropod named Paralotitan. This is the only model I can find of Paralotitan, which is a shame. It's a huge sauropod. I mean, it should be like this big, but you know, I understand cost and price, but one thing I wish is that the sauropod toys were just bigger. I don't know. It's like a personal thing. Anyway, so the idea here is that this is Paralotitan. It's a titanosaur, a Cretaceous sauropod with these armor plates in their skin usually. Another thing that live with Spinosaurus is an iguanodont, or a hadrosaur form, or an herbivore basically, named Tyrannosaurus, which is found in North Africa as well. And the cell here, oh, it's a Spinosaurus, but it's like a duckbill-ish dinosaur. And you know, they're found from like Egypt to Morocco to Niger. So that's living in the same environment too. Fun fact, I mean, the idea that there's 2 cell animals in the environment. Another guy or animal found there is Rugops, which is a belosaur. So if you saw Disney's dinosaur, there's a Carnotaurus with 2 horns. This is like its cousin from Africa, basically. So in the environment, it would be like a leopard, basically. You know, so it's a smaller predator. You know, the biggest concern of Spinosaurus is Carcharodontosaurus, which is essentially the African cousin of the American Acrocanthosaurus and the South American Giganotosaurus. So this is an animal that's the other like top predator. So it's like almost, it's not as big as Spinosaurus, but it's like bigger or equal to T-Rex. So the idea is that this animal is something that's competitor in the environment. But again, more terrestrial than Spinosaurus. On land, more than Spinosaurus. So, and there has been reports of a Spinosaurus sail with a bite mark in it, and it's been theorized it was from one of these guys, actually. Other contenders in the environment that are underappreciated, this is not the exact species because they don't make them, but the coelacanth and a sawfish, essentially. And again, these are modern models, but there have been sawfish that are like 24 feet long. A lot of pictures on Instagram of Spinosaurus swimming with these animals in the ecology, and large coelacanths as big as trucks, So again, it shows that aquatic environment, and there's a lot of carnivores I'm not showing you that they don't make toys of, and very few herbivores. And that's weird because, well, I think weird, what is normal? But in an ecology, you usually have lesser carnivores and more herbivore diversity. In North Africa, it's different. So the question is what's going on? And there's a lot of water and mangrove swamps and things. So what we're seeing is that the Spinosaurus family tree is leading towards an aquatic lifestyle. So think about how we have like canids, dogs, that are terrestrial for the most part. There's a group. We have cats, big cats like Panthera, like lions and tigers and all that. But then bears are omnivores and they kind of like hunt fish and eat things. So imagine that these other carnivores have certain roles in the environment, and Spinosaurus is moving towards the water. That's his niche in the environment. And we see in sawfish, Spinosaurus teeth found in the vertebra, so we know they're eating these guys. And the science of histology is when you take a bone and you study the chemistry of it. In that, say I live here in Houston, and I don't drink the water because I've heard things and read things. But if you drink the water where you live, there are certain minerals local to your area, right? And if someone looks at my bones in 100 years or someone else's bones and say, oh, this person lived in Houston because they have these minerals that are found in that area. Well, for histology, you can look at the animal's bone and figure out what they're eating. So Spinosaurus seem to have been eating in their relatives a lot of fish, more than I think 30-40% of fish at least in their diet. They did not eat red meat. They would have eaten red meat given a chance, but they would have also eaten a lot of fish. So that's another thing we're looking at too. Now, one more thing I want to point out is an animal found not quite the same area, but just FY, associated with North Africa is Delta dromius, which is he has what we call a dubious, it's been questioning how they relate to other dinosaurs. It's thought to be in the Belosaur group, but right now, but kind of also a different branch of it. But again, Delta dromius is really kind of cool. If you go to my, I'll put in a link, the dinosaurs, my dinosaur gallery, my website, I have him as of right now where he's sitting in the family tree. But anyway, so finally, I want to point out a few more things. Spinosaurus family tree. Spinosaurus is from, now we know, Egypt and Morocco, North Africa. He has a cousin in Brazil called Irritator, which is right here, made by Mattel and Jurassic World. Irritator is actually considered Spinosaurus like closest relative, basically, as far as evolutionary connections go. A video on him next week. Let's see. We have another one from Niger, Africa called Suchomimus, which means crocodile mimic. And these guys are like pretty much like Spinosauruses, but smaller, and they have a smaller cell in their back. And the toy does that. Again, Mattel, Jurassic World model. And last but not least, the most studied Spinosaurus is a guy from Britain called Baryonyx. I mentioned him earlier. Baryonyx means heavy claw because they're a big claw in their hand, and made famous now by the Jurassic World Cretaceous Camp on Netflix. But the idea is that these are other Spinosaurids, and particularly this one, there's more bones than fossils of it. So even though Spinosaurus is not as well known, and there's less, until recently, there are less bones, studying Baryonyx, his cousin, you're like, hey, this guy has a lot of these features, and they kind of use that to extrapolate Spinosaurus' design. So that's, a lot of things to consider right now. I know the video's going a little long, but overall you're seeing the history of Spinosaurus, you're seeing its contemporaries, and its relatives all in the same setup. There's always more to talk about, but I wanted to get the overall, here's Spinosaurus, here's the big picture out. There'll probably be more videos as more information comes out, but this is pretty much it for now. Thank you very much for tuning in, and, I'll have a video next week.